All of a sudden, this happens this last week. Hamas, Israel, Palestine, and protesting down the street from here. 300 people protesting down the street from our office.
In Florida.
In Florida. To the point where DeSantis had to come out and tweet about it. The governor had to come out and tweet about it. But anyways, I'll pause. It's great to have you. I know you're obviously following the story very closely.
I am. Yeah.
What's on your mind? What are you thinking? What's going on?
Yeah, I just want to, first for the audience, to make sure everyone's thinking about this clearly. This was not a typical military type attack. When Russia invaded Ukraine, which was bad, they went after military targets. I mean, some civilians get caught in the crossfire, but the targets were military in nature. This is completely different. This was Hamas that penetrated the border. They did engage some IDF soldiers, and then they did a detour and went to concerts and kibbutzes, women and children. This is the closest to the Holocaust that any of us have seen in our life. 1,200 Jews slaughtered in one day. And from paragliders, and I mean, you see the concert videos, these young ladies are running through the fields and they're mowing them down mercilessly. And now we know well over 15 Americans are dead. It might actually be more than that now because the death tally keeps on getting higher and higher. And I'll be honest, Patrick, you know, the Israel situation is important to talk about geopolitically. How American passport holders, American citizens have been reacting here domestically has really captured my attention.
What do you mean by that?
Well, for example, the student body president at NYU Law sent out a message the other day saying Israel brought this upon themselves. 31 Harvard students said this is a great thing, right?
Not students, student organizations.
Yes, yeah, that's correct.
A bigger group, yeah.
That's right. And Columbia University, something very similar. George Washington University, something very similar. Cal State Long Beach. Cal State Long Beach, some of the student organizers, Patrick, they were bringing out images of the paraglider as if they said these are freedom fighters. Mm-hmm. These people are sick. There is no middle ground with this. There is no other side of the story. This is the massacring of women and children. And so I think that, you know, we have to take a step back and ask ourselves, you know, how do you get to a place where that kind of moral toxin becomes so infiltrated into your country, into the zeitgeist, into the narrative? Then you have Black Lives Matter Global Network in Chicago. They deleted this tweet, probably not because they don't believe it, but because, quite honestly, they got such backlash where they also had the paraglider, where they said, you know, a fight for justice somewhere is a fight for justice anywhere. So this has been, I'll be honest, I do this for a living. I do 3 hours of radio a day, 3 hours of podcast. This has been a very heavy week. I mean, heavy morally, heavy geopolitically, and I don't see it getting better anytime soon. The entire region is blowing up. It could turn into a regional war. And not to mention our own country is collapsing in real time.
So I fully agree with you. If you want to show this, Rob, so the audience can see this as well. I'm sure they've seen it all over. Yeah, they deleted it, but this has been all over the place.
We know why.
You know what I love about this still? Let me tell you what I love about this, because during times of crisis, everybody reveals themselves and who they are.
Yeah.
Great. You come on, you show that, and then all of a sudden, hey, NBA, how come you've been quiet? Didn't you put BLM all over the place?
Yeah.
Hey, NFL. Hey, what happened? Apple. Hey, all these other. Weren't you guys all supportive of this? What do you think about this? Do you support this? Well, no, we don't support this. Let's just stay kind of quiet. Their PR guys are saying what they're saying. But you know, the question I got for you is the following. Obviously, we live in America, and everybody that's listened to this from all over the world, whatever country you're in, your priority is where you live. It should be.
Yes.
It's where your kids are. It's where your family is. You know, your priority is the state you live in.
Yes.
Your priority is, our priority is here. The people that live in Israel, their priority is Israel. Everybody's priority is where they live in. The concern here is, Vinny, can you share some of those numbers from October 2021 to October 2023?
Yep.
Who has crossed the southern border, if you don't mind giving some of that data?
All right, so do you guys know how many special interest illegal aliens have been caught
Is this
at
the
the
article?
border? Yeah, this is it. So, and for everybody that doesn't know, special interest alien is anyone from countries that pose a national security threat that might support or shelter terrorism. Customs and Border Patrol have estimated that 1.5 million illegals entered the U.S. without being detected, and no wonder why, Charlie, because I feel like this is all a plan. Here are the numbers. Agents recorded special interest aliens. Syria coming into the country from October 2021 to October 2023, Pat, in 2 years. Syria, 538. Yemen, 139. Iran, 659. Iraq, 123. Afghanistan, 6,386. Lebanon, 164. Egypt, 3,153. Pakistan, 1,613. Turkey, 30,830, and Uzbekistan, 13,624. And let's not forget, Pat, almost, and Charlie, you know this, 200. The FBI have caught on the terror watch list 200 that we caught, let alone the ones that we have no idea about. So then that goes to ask the people the question, Pat, why is the border, why did they let the border wide open this entire time? That's exactly why the freaking reason is, and it's going to get worse.
What do you mean by that's why the reason is?
But Pat, here's my thing. For the past couple of years, Charlie, all of us have been watching Pat Mayorkas in front of Congress, and they're like, everybody yelling at them, like, why is the border wide open? No answer. He beats around the bush. He can't give a specific answer. It's almost as if, Pat, all these people are in here right now to do something crazy to us in this country because, as you know, the Hamas leader.
But why though?
I think because one of them is to cause chaos, Pat. Because guess what? Election is coming up too. They can't do pandemic again. How are you going to keep everybody at home? Remember House of Cards, season 5, episode 7. They did a fake terrorist thing at a polling thing. Nobody's going to go. If something happens at a polling center, they're going to shut down. Guess what? Who's going to go vote, Pat? You're going to vote from your house. Why else? Is it a humanitarian thing? You think they care about Venezuelans and Mexicans and people? And by the way, these people that are coming in, Charlie, you know, all these guys, that's 18 to 35.
That's right.
They're military fighting age men, Pat. And the UN is giving them cards, Charlie, with money on it and a cell phone saying, hey, go get an apartment. And when we call you,
that's right.
We'll like.
Vin, this is actually pretty shocking to me because I don't want to just gloss over this. Oh, Vinny, like these are people from the Middle East that they've caught at the U.S. border crossing.
But that's just 1 year.
Okay,
1 year.
That's just in 1 year.
And that's who we've caught, not who's gotten away.
And this is who's been caught, meaning they didn't catch everybody. So why would someone from Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, all these countries, why would they be coming through the southern border?
Let me stay on this series of questions I'm asking.
Yeah.
Here's where I'm going with this. Okay. So let's say they're doing it intentionally. Let's process that.
Okay.
1, who is they? 2, why are they doing it intentionally?
Yeah, I think it's obviously they're doing it intentionally. And let's just say the Democrat Party and moderate Republicans, they have different reasons for it. And the Democrat Party thinks that they get more power politically if they allow the third world to come into the country. They're not totally right about that, actually. It turns out that third world people that enter America, they have values that are against white upper middle class woke liberalism. But don't take my word for it. Look at the Castro brothers. The Castro brothers, who one was a mayor of San Antonio, the other one served in the Obama administration, Housing and Urban Development. One of them ran the Democrat National Committee. There's a clip that you could find on CBS Face the Nation. They have memory hold this clip. So if you find it, kudos on you. Where they said, they were in this interview. And they said, hey, in just a couple years, you're going to be calling the electoral votes for Texas for Democrats because of how many Hispanics are coming into Texas. These are 2 card-carrying partisan Democrats that are telling you that Texas will become blue, will become Democrat because they're allowing people from the third world to come. Now, mind you, Patrick, what I just said, I get attacked by the media. They say, oh, this is a great replacement conspiracy theory. Sure. And that's what's called a thought-terminating cliche. They say it to you so you don't actually think about it. But why else would they keep the border completely wide open? There is no border right now. And Border Patrol is not deterring entry into the United States. They are facilitating entry into the United States. They are co-sponsoring it. I live in a border state. We are experiencing 5,000 a day. 5,000 a day. And Border Patrol is basically saying, come to us, here's your court date, here's your piece of paper into the interior United States, see you in a couple years maybe, and they don't show up for their court date.
Yeah.
Right? So there's 2 aspects to this. First is just the flow of people that are coming that are going to destabilize our social services that, look what's happening in New York, right? They don't have the infrastructure to support it. The more immediate concern and caution I have is sleeper cells in the United States that are from terrorist countries that could be activated to do harm against the homeland. And that's not fear-mongering. The head of Hamas said this tomorrow. He's called for look at his own words.
Yeah, Khalid Mashal.
I want to make sure I'm accurate.
No, you're
here.
right. Khalid Mashal called for international.
Is it translated in English? Can you?
No, but I want to make sure I'm accurate because I get attacked by the media for fear mongering.
No, you're not. You're actually right. I have it over here.
Please
His name
read
is Khalid Mashal. He was the
Global Day of Jihad tomorrow.
Yeah, he said show anger, especially on Friday in Muslim countries, also among Muslim diaspora around the world, and he called it the Friday of Al-Aqsa flood. He said this will send a message of rage to Zionists to America. America. He asked for financial help from all Muslims around the world to help their money, and he called it a financial jihad. He asked Muslims to give the fighters of Gaza in order to compensate them for destruction. The more important thing, Pat, this is final words. Funds are important, but today we are asking for your blood and souls to be sacrificed for Palestine. So I'm giving everybody a heads up, and that's why they've always.
That's tomorrow.
That's tomorrow. It's Friday the 13th. And Charlie, with everything that's going on, with the failure of security, with a message like that from this demon, thank God for our founding fathers for giving us the Second Amendment. Thank you, God, because guess what? I dare. When shit pops off here, Pat, God, I feel bad for everybody that happened over there. Nobody had guns for 3 to 6 hours. Apparently, the best military, one of the best ones in the world, just disappeared. Over here, I'm proud of America because we got guns. Come try that shit with us.
Let's stay on this. Let's stay on this because I actually want to go a little bit deeper. Okay, so the people in Texas, we're going to turn it blue. The more immigrants we bring, fine. Totally get that. Strategically, respect it. Fine. I totally understand what you're doing to the left. You want to turn your state to be more blue? Cool. Do your thing. Texas has been an enemy for a long time. I get it. However, the they people, okay, not the lower level people, the they people. The they people typically have money. The they people typically want to control their wealth. These are the puppet masters. These are the guys that have the money that are controlling. Why would they be okay with allowing 70,000, whatever the number was, to come through, knowing these they people are probably legacy people who have wives, who have kids, who have grandkids? Why would they do that knowing they could jeopardize the community they're in, the value of their property, the value of their company, the value of their business? Why would they do that?
Alexander Solzhenitsyn wrote The Gulag Archipelago, which brought down the Soviet Union. And he said, thanks to ideology, this all happened. And I'm going to give you an example, and I'll tie it together. You can go to the George Soros Open Society Foundation website and just show people. He believes in an ideological campaign that borders are the worst thing ever. Sovereign nations are the problem. George Soros is a devout believer in that ideology. And what has been an eye-opener for me, Patrick, and I can use a couple examples, reality is not the ultimate verdict of how you act. Ideology can actually be more critical. In New York City, a week and a half ago, a young lady was sitting on a park bench with her boyfriend. You might have covered this story, right?
We did.
3:51 a.m. A black guy comes by, slits the throat of the boyfriend. She doesn't even administer first aid. That's not the point. It's very strange. When the police went to her, she refused to give the race of the attacker.
Oh, my God.
Because she did not want people to think it was done for race.
Wow.
I'll give you another example. A young lady was gang raped in Germany by Arabs, okay? I'm not saying all Arabs do it, but unfortunately it's a pattern that we're seeing spike in Europe. It's a thing. Arab Muslims. She goes to the police and says, I was gang raped. They said, please describe your attackers. And she says it was 6 white Germans.
Jesus.
So they go and try to find 6 white Germans. They fail. They come back and she admits, oh, actually, it was 6 Arab Muslims. I didn't want to tell you because I didn't want to increase the amount of anti-immigrant fervor. She protected her rapists because she was taking ideology over reality. Patrick, why? Why does Soros want the borders open? He's a devotee to an ideological, dare I say, pseudo-religion to create the world into a different type of place. No borders, no cash, no property. You can call it heaven on earth, utopia. You can even call it immanentizing the eschaton. That's a religious term. That we're going to bring the eternal promise of paradise here, paradiso, as Dante would say. And they want it now. And they think that the problem is Western society. The problem is private property. The problem is America. And if you look at through that lens, all of a sudden you say, wow, Biden is not incompetent. It's intentional. You destroy the dollar. You keep the border open. You weaken the military. It gets you closer to a one world government, of which they are bragging in the World Economic Forum. Vision 2030. You'll own nothing. You'll be happy. Okay. America will no longer be the world's superpower. Anyway, I don't mean to filibuster.
Let's still stay on this. Okay. For out of the 900 billionaires that we have in America, for every one Soros, how many billionaires, power players are against it? Meaning, do I believe Soros has another 20 buddies that think and believe what he believes in? Sure. Do I think he's got another 50? Sure. I don't know what the number is. I don't think it's that big of a number that you think it is, but I think he does have a group of people.
He has a circle.
Okay. Yeah. I'm with it. I think that's a smaller than 50, more than 10 people.
Sure.
Let's say it's something like that. But the other guys are not with it. I don't see a Griffin being for it. I don't see Schwartzman being for it. I don't see a Buffett being for it. I don't see a Musk being for it. I don't see even a Bezos being for it.
Yeah.
I don't see a lot of these bigger power players being for it.
So Musk, to his credit, is fighting against it. Bezos is afraid. His ex-wife is for it. Mackenzie Bezos is pumping billions of dollars into the most radical left-wing causes you could imagine. I'll give you another name that's not talked about, a devotee to the ideological agenda. Laureen Powell Jobs, one of the wealthiest women on the planet, Steve Jobs' widow, worth $20 billion. She owns The Atlantic magazine. She also runs something called the Emerson Collective. You could look at it. She's one of the biggest donors to that. She's an ideological devotee. But Patrick, I will agree with you. If you get 100 random billionaires in the country, every industry, right? Sports, oil, auto manufacturing. The problem is many of them are cowards, and that they do not want to fight. They would rather have their business be protected. They would rather be able to have a backup
Your
plan.
business is not being protected.
No, but they're not fighting, Patrick. Musk is. That's why Musk is being criminally investigated by the Southern District of New York for a house. Did you see this story? A glass house. That is a warning shot to Musk to tell him to back off, and he doesn't, to his credit. Musk has done such good for humanity to be what Carnegie and Rockefeller and JP Morgan used to be, because we think so negatively of those people, but they loved America. We have a different problem in our country. The powerful hate the country that they got rich in. It's very bizarre, and it's incredibly insidious. So you think about it, right? If you look at the elites, you're always going to have elites, right? You're always going to have a ruling class.
There's always been one. Yeah.
And this idea of egalitarianism, that everyone's going to be equal, is garbage. We should then argue for better elites. Elites that want to steward the country and care about the middle class, not elites that are worried about executing a cultural and political blitzkrieg on the fabric of the greatest nation ever to exist in the history of the world. And it doesn't take a lot of them, Patrick. You get a Soros, you get a Laureen Powell Jobs, another name for you, Reid Hoffman, another name for you, Mark Benioff. Benioff's a legit Marxist. Like, that guy is to the left of Stalin.
He bought Time magazine.
Yeah,
He's a Salesforce.
He's a Salesforce, and these are just off the top of my head, right?
Yeah.
So you get Laureen Powell Jobs, you get Benioff, right? You get Mackenzie Bezos, you get Soros. You're talking about serious capital in addition to the Ford Foundation, the MacArthur Foundation, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and in addition to the institutional capture and control. And then you get some people that quietly, like, I agree. I think Jeff Bezos is probably in private more libertarian than he is liberal, based on everyone that I know that knows him. But he wants to put like rockets in space, and he owns the Washington Post. He doesn't seem like someone who's going to fight billionaire tyranny. Instead, he's going to do what most people do when evil's on the march. Nothing.
Pat, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Like, we're talking about these massive entrepreneurs that have built billion-dollar-plus companies.
Correct.
Okay, built on the basic premise of free market capitalism, entrepreneurship, building these types of companies. How does someone like that, who's built something that understands what it means to create jobs and build companies, how do they go so far left to this Marxist ideology? You called it egalitarianism. You interviewed the one guy that wanted to bump up everybody's pay in the company to $70,000. It was sort of contentious.
Dan Price.
Yeah, Dan Price, exactly. How do you go from building such a massive company, built on the principles of what America's founded on capitalism, free enterprise, the free market, and then go so far left? How does that happen?
Well, I mean, I'm really trying to process this. It's either second generation money, so meaning you didn't earn it, because if you earned it, it's a different mindset, but many of these guys earned it. Okay,
That's
Jobs' wife got it. Okay, Melinda Gates, fine.
Mackenzie Bezos.
Bezos, totally get it. Those three, totally get it. You didn't do it. Like in our community, I'll walk by and, I'll see some of the people that, or maybe they married, they're the second or third wife of a guy after he made them money, and then the first wife's no longer in the picture. Well, the first wife was probably, but then he goes, well, you see when they talk to them, they just look down at you sometimes. And I'm like, okay, very weird. And some are very friendly, right? You process both of these and how it is. And then you go and you ask another question, and you say, okay, so maybe someone's got something on these guys. Maybe they're scared of somebody. Maybe they're frightened of somebody. Maybe somebody even more powerful than them has got, them under control for whatever reason. But the more and more and more you go deeper, you're like, dude, this is going to eventually end up hurting you. Like, in what way do you think this is going to favor you? Like, actually, what do you think is going to happen? I understand somebody, like, for example, proxy wars. Okay, I understand a proxy war. Why do I understand a proxy war? To me, you know what a proxy war is? Oh, Adam, you won't believe what Vinny said to you. Vinny, you won't believe what Adam said to you. And I'll watch you guys fight. Okay, That's a proxy war, right? That's
bro?
instigating.
Yeah, shut up, Adam.
That's instigating to see that. So maybe you do that to create division in the enemy's house. Okay, deceptive, yes. Dark, for sure. Sun Tzu, yeah, totally is. But you know what? I get it, because at least it's what? Someone else's house.
Yeah.
But imagine you pin your own kids against each other, and you intentionally, get the front security. Let's just say you live in a gated community, to get him to get fired, and you replace him with sloppy people that are 82-year-old security. You know how you go to a hotel, they got these 82-year-old security people they hire, and you're like, who's this guy going to stop, right? This guy's going to stop anybody? No. Then you allow people to come into your community for what? For them to invade your house and hurt your own kid? That's the part where there's a disconnect that doesn't make sense to me.
So some of them are insulated. I mean, they have priced out the real estate market in their home of Sun Valley, Aspen, Kennebunkport. They are legitimately isolated from any of the consequences of their political decisions, right? I mean, if you go to Aspen, you would think that like we have solved every problem, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you go to Aspen in July, right, everyone is like fit and trim. There's not like a BMI over like 35, right?
I was literally there in July.
Am I right?
This is freaking paradise.
No, all of a sudden you're like,
Yeah.
why can't we have world peace?
Yeah,
And
of
is there a problem?
Yeah.
No, you know what? No, it's almost like you just like all of a sudden like get
When you're
like
completely isolated and
Totally.
you're not around any of this.
well, not
these
only that,
issues.
when you are surrounded by very successful, good-looking, attractive, high IQ people, that's not number one, Patrick. So they are not in Compton. They are not in a neighborhood that is going to be overrun. They're not in the Rio Grande Valley. They're not in Kerrville, Texas. That's going to be overrun. But there's another part to this though, and some of the billionaires look at themselves. There's two categories that I want to mention that we haven't. They look at themselves as masters of the universe, and these are usually tech people. This is Larry Page. This is Sergey Brin. This is Mark Zuckerberg.
I get those guys.
Okay? For them, they really think they can reconfigure society through AI, technocracy, almost like a highly sophisticated oligarchy, because they think that the problem is that we haven't had smart enough people in charge. Almost rule by committee, and I want to be in charge of that committee, okay?
Yeah.
But the second part, Patrick, is that some of these guys will do whatever it takes so that they are favored by the Politburo. They'll give any amount of money. They really don't have any ideological spin either way. They just want to be on the winning team. If the right wing was ascendant in the country, some of these guys would be giving money to like pro-life clinics and churches. Some of these guys just go with the wind. They want to be protected by the regime. They don't really believe anything.
Dude, let me tell you, man. I mean, okay, let's play the dark game.
Oh,
let's go dark.
They're there.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right. So I'm on a flight yesterday, and my pilot is the pilot I like. You actually have met this
Met
pilot.
him. The Israeli guy? I love that.
Yeah, he's the pilot.
Yeah.
So I see him. I said, how you doing? Not good. I said, okay. I said, what do you think about what's going on? Last time he was with us when we went to Milwaukee.
Yeah. I like him.
Yeah. So how you doing? Obviously not good. Family. How's family? Not good. Family in Israel. How about this? How about that? How about this? Anyways, I can't tell you everything we talked about because I found out who he is and what he did, his job in Israel.
Oh,
very
wow.
interesting. Very serious guy. He says to me, you know what, though? The Israelis community right now is very happy with Joe Biden. I said, really? Tell me why. He says, because he's got our back, and he's shown so many great things he's doing. Blinken is going there, and he went and shook hands with Netanyahu, and they're showing support, and they're with us, and they're saying pro-Israel, and they're saying this, and even Jean-Pierre, came out and said a couple words.
The squad. She went after the squad.
That's right, which is kind of weird, right?
Crazy.
So okay, so you're sitting there, you're like, maybe the center people are like, okay, these guys sound normal, right? Okay, so let's play dark. Did you need something like this for you to create a war to the point where the re-election percentage of a president goes so high when there's a war so you can get re-elected? Maybe. Is it because the amount of chaos you learned in 2020 the elections was so chaotic, so it increases the chance of you being able to win another election because the more chaotic it was, you can tell people what we're going to be doing and they're already accustomed to it. Maybe they'll be more open-minded to it. Maybe. Is it because maybe even on the other side for me that I think about Netanyahu and Israel, first of all, who has the best secret intelligence in the world?
Mossad.
Mossad. You mean to tell me?
No.
You mean to tell me these guys have been that low-key underground for a year,
Nope.
built a city like the one in Israel, and they trained their guys to go in and how to break into homes and how to take people hostage? And you're telling me you didn't know? Seriously? And Egypt comes out. By the way, the story came out. It's like, well, you know, we told them, we warned them that something was taking place. Another story came out about Egypt. Rob, if you tell me what page it's on.
Then they said they didn't. They're going back and forth.
Yeah, and then they're saying
Now
they
they're
did. And you're
scared.
like, so make up your mind. Did you know or did you not know? So what is really going on? So then I go a layer deeper, and I'll turn it over to you. Is, okay, did Israel almost, you know, because I'm talking to this other guy, and he says, I said, you realize what happened in 2014? He says, yeah. I said, 2014 when they, you know, the 3 girls were kidnapped, and then, you know, whatever happened, raped, travesty.
Horrible.
And then Israel comes back and kills 2,000 people. He said it should have been 20,000. It should have been 200,000. So I said, where are you going with this? He says, well, listen, here's what I'd like to see happen in Israel. What's that? Only Jews live in Israel. Nobody else. We don't need to coexist. It's just not going to work out. Is this a way for Netanyahu's legacy to be he eliminated Hamas? Is this his way for saying, now I got the war, I got the card, I got the, you know,
Mandate.
get out of jail card for me to go straight up 100,000 on the blockade of Gaza Strip, 300,000 reservists you put up there. Now we're going to go groundwork. We're going all freaking out because the world gave us the permission to do so. Is that what it is? I don't know. I just keep continuing to have a lot of questions the more I think about it, because so these guys are coming up. So what are we going to have, another 9/11? And they're going to come and do what? They're going to go into your community. What are they going to target next? Where are they going to go next? What's going to happen next? Oh, can we? It's not a big deal. It's never happen again. Well, that's what we thought it was never going to happen. 9/11. Before 9/11 happened, nobody thought 9/11 was going to happen.
Yep.
So I just have way too many questions that makes me think about what the motives are. And if we go dark, I'll put all those things out there.
Yeah.
How did these guys not know this was taking place?
So I've been to Israel many times. The whole country's a fortress. When I first heard this story, I still have the same gut instinct that I did initially. I find this very hard to believe. I've been to that Gaza border. You cannot go 10 feet without running into a 19-year-old with an AR-15 or an automatic machine gun that is an IDF soldier, right? The whole country is surveilled. And so let me just kind of go through this. We don't talk about Israeli politics very often, and most Americans don't know this. The last 9 months, Israel was on the brink of civil war. It's not an exaggeration. This judicial stuff, there were hundreds of thousands of Israelis taking to the streets because Bibi Netanyahu is basically redefining the Israeli constitution. That's not an exaggeration, right? He said the judicial branch has too much power. There were protests planned this week against Netanyahu, where they anticipated tens of thousands of people to take to the streets. That's all gone, Patrick. Netanyahu now has an emergency government and a mandate to lead. I'm not willing to go so far that saying that Netanyahu knew or there was intelligence here, but I think some questions need to be asked. Was there a stand down order? Was there a stand down order? 6 hours? I don't believe it. Israel's the size of New Jersey. When I took a helicopter ride from Jerusalem to the Gaza border, it's 45 minutes. Wow. 6 hours. They're live streaming the killing of Jews. Did somebody in the government say stand down? That is a legitimate, non-conspiracy question. The whole country is the IDF. The whole country is.
Yeah.
And you're trying to tell me that they're going to concerts and kibbutzes and schools, and by reports, 6 hours. Let's say it's 3 hours.
That's suspect. Go ahead, Rob.
It's also not like a right-wing reporting. This is from the New York Times. The long
Thank
wait
you.
for help as massacre
this.
unfolds in Israel.
9
I can't think of a
hours.
more liberal news outlet than the New York Times.
And by the way, I'm actually very pro-Israel. So let me be very, so I'm not exact.
Well, I think we all are.
No, I just want to make sure my position is clear here. But so Patrick, there are other explanations. It's possible that the Netanyahu government was double-crossed by bad agents. Okay? That's dark, but it's not as dark as what we're talking about. Okay? Another aspect is that Netanyahu might have traitors in his government, like legitimate traitors that have infiltrated. I was texting with some senior people in the IDF, and they said, Charlie, I can't say too much, but let's just say the same problem you have with the left in America, we have here in Israel. So there's something to think about. Just something to think about, right? Is that maybe there's some people within those intel agencies that aren't as sympathetic. Or maybe, Patrick, They might have gotten a tip. They might have gotten whispers, but no one thought it would be 1,200 Jews dead. That's a potential, right? Because here's the essence of it. The essence is this. This is the closest thing to the Holocaust that any of us have lived through. But the fact is now Bibi and the Israeli hard right government has a mandate. I got to be careful the way I say this. They're going to try to ethnically cleanse Gaza.
Yep.
I mean, I don't use that term lightly, okay? They're talking about basically removing 2.5 million people from there, okay? And honestly, they have a mandate to go seek justice and revenge. They do. This idea that they need to have a truce or a peace treaty, that's morally crap after you see women and children be burned alive and dragged to the streets. But there are some serious questions here, Patrick. And let me tell you, my pattern recognition over the last 5 years has become pretty sharp. COVID, Maui fires, Epstein. When I see a story and it doesn't click, our guts are usually right.
Yeah, this one's very weird.
Can I comment on the, when you use the term ethnic cleansing, that will, make the hairs on the back
I'm not
of your head.
accusing them
No,
of that.
I'm not. I'm just saying that term. I actually did some research specifically on that because that is a very slippery slope. And if you actually want to talk about what Jews and even Christians should be most fearful of, Muslims as well, is the concept of ethnic cleansing.
So I just want to be sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
I'm saying that's what they're going to be accused of.
Correct.
But if there are some people in public life in Israel that, Patrick, what did your pilot guy say? I want only Jews in Israel, right? Okay, that is a form of ethnically cleansing because 20% of Israel is Arab Muslim.
Correct.
20%.
And people don't know that. And I've been to Israel several times. I was there a few months ago, and I saw the protests.
Yes.
If you don't have to be expert at Israeli politics to understand the divisiveness of politics, especially in America. We understand like Republicans, Democrats, blacks, white, whatever it is. Similar in Israel, there's the liberal faction, mostly based in Tel Aviv, and more the conservative faction in Jerusalem and throughout the country. And obviously, the more orthodox you are, the more you're inclined to be more right-wing thinking. But I think civil war is a little premature, but there is major contention going on there.
The country was at a fissure point. Yeah. Right. It was splitting.
No doubt. Just like there was calls for potential civil war here. I sort of think that's a little aggressive.
But you would agree it was hot. The country was hot.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Just like the BLM riots here.
Yeah. It was not a time for unity in Israel.
The thing that I think just to think about when you talk about, I'm not saying you're accusing anything, that you just use the term. So the concept of ethnic cleansing is the biggest fear of the Jewish people. Okay? It's the whole reason that Israel was founded, because of the ethnic cleansing that occurred throughout Europe for millennia, right? Obviously culminating with World War II. But there's no doubt that that Israel could wipe out Gaza at any given point. But they do not want to participate in ethnic cleansing. Now, they would love to annihilate the terrorists. But if you actually talk about what's going around the world today, and this is what Israel needs to kind of take note of.
That's what I was talking about, Patrick. I'm sorry to interrupt.
This is a protest.
But in the summer, this every day, there were people in the streets.
I saw this. July of 2023.
The country was separating.
This is such a hotbed issue right now. But if you talk about ethnic cleansing, look at what's going on in Azerbaijan and Armenia.
No,
Pat, right. Something that
110,000 Armenian Christians.
Nobody's talking about that.
Yeah.
We've seen over the last couple decades, what happened in Bosnia. Bosnian Christians were killing Muslims. We've seen what's going on in Myanmar. Nobody talks about that. Okay. Christians are actually, there's an article right here from the Cato Institute. Who are the most persecuted people in the world? Well, it's actually Christians. You've probably done your research on this.
I talk about it all the time.
You go to Afghanistan, you go to Iraq, you go to Iran, you go to China, you go to Nigeria. They're killing Christians. Here it is right here from the Cato Institute.
That's right.
Okay, so the whole concept of ethnic cleansing, I think temperatures need to go down because it's not egalitarian. People are killing people for multiple reasons.
And here's Israel's difficulty, is that Hamas, they build their headquarters under hospitals. They use humans as human shields.
Yeah.
And so civilians are going to die, and that is a tragedy. And Hamas brought this upon themselves. My wish, my plead to Israel is be precise, be focused in your retaliation. You have a moral right to go and seek the blood of the people that did this. What I think would be bad for Israel, and I have a heart for Israel. I can't tell you what it did. It made me a stronger Christian in a way I can't even tell you, right? Be able to see where our Lord rose from the dead. My heart for Israel is that they don't overreact. And Patrick, you hear what I'm saying here, right?
Fully, that's my concern, because if they do, again, if they do overreact, I'm more coming from a place of thinking this was intentional. If they don't overreact, then this wasn't intentional. Meaning, if all of a sudden you see an all-out annihilation.
What do you mean by intentional? That they knew it was going to happen?
That no, when you're asking about the stand down 6 hours and 3 hours, then why did you? What intel are you getting? So we're on the same page.
No, fair enough.
Yeah.
No,
all I'm saying
I just
is,
wanted to make sure I understood.
if there is a major attack, it was intentional. If there's a major attack, and by the way, the number in the last however many years, the biggest number they have is 2,000, right? Palestinians that died. That's the biggest number they've had. And in Gaza, if you look at the Gaza Strip if you can pull up the map so you can kind of show Gaza Strip, the West Bank, and where Hezbollah's coming from, Lebanon. Yeah, but in West Bank, it's a different story, because in West Bank, at least 42% of Palestinians there support Hamas, but in Gaza it's 58%.
And
so
Hamas really isn't in those regions.
Yeah, it really is not in those regions. So this is Gaza Strip, all the way to the left.
Can I emphasize though?
Sure, go for it.
Look at the cameras, the radars. Patrick, not only did they go in,
That's what I'm saying.
No, but hear me out here. Not only did they go into Israel, they got out of Israel with hostages.
Yeah, 100 hostages.
So you would think, let me just hear me out. There's a penetration of your border wall, okay? That you guard on a holy day, the 50-year anniversary of the Yom Kippur War. And you would think, hey, they're going to come back. Let's make sure that doesn't happen. Let's mobilize some forces. And it is not quite, but it is close to the North Korean demilitarized.
What's weird about what you're saying
close.
that gets even more credibility is you're a pro-Israel guy.
No, that I want to be very clear.
No,
Yeah.
fully, I know that. So I want to make sure the audience knows this. So for you to question that, and for me to question, I'm like, sitting here saying, how did you not know this was taking place? But again, going back to it, so let's go to a different angle here. Okay, so many times when crisis happens, we sit around, oh my gosh, we immediately go to World War III. Like we have a yearning for
Armageddon.
There's almost a little bit of a yearning people have for, oh my God, what would a civil war really look like, bro? That's like crazy. I get to take a month off from
so
work.
scary,
Like,
though.
you instead and play cards all day.
I have all these guns. I want to use them.
These are people that have never gone to a country that's been at war.
Or never experienced war.
No, it's the worst thing human beings.
Dude, trust me. Like I posted a picture the other day. My sister texted me, Paulette. I'm like, how I always talk about putting the, tapes on the windows?
Yeah,
I don't know if you saw that picture.
Yeah.
It's like, that picture was, Paulette's like, look at this picture. What do you see unique in this picture? I said, oh, it's pretty cool. It's you and I when we were kids. She says, no. Look at the glass. I'm like, oh, shit.
Just in case they get...
This is the tapes. This is me in Iran with my sister when we would get bombed. One day we got bombed 167 times, okay? My dad would put tapes so the window wouldn't explode on our faces because that's our bedroom. Like I'm on this side.
Jeez,
and then the other side is our rooms. And he's like, hey, if something happens, so you look at these stories. You're like, yeah, I mean, kids are going through it, but go a little bit deeper with this. Let's go a little bit deeper. Let's go next step here with this. Okay, what is truly the worst case that's going to happen? We have a fascination and an obsession with market crash, collapse, war, civil war. This is the last election. This is the most important election of all time. I'm telling you, or else we're going to lose America, right? Of course, all of these things is a way of controlling fear, urgency. I get it. There's a certain element of, motives behind it that's effective. But how ugly do you think this actually can get? Like the domino effect. If this happens, these guys react. Then if these guys react, these guys have to react.
That meme where it all starts with, a mean tweet and it ends in nuclear war.
Yeah.
You ever see that meme?
Yeah.
Domino effect.
Exactly.
Yes.
You know which one I'm talking about. Sorry to interrupt, but yeah.
So how ugly can this thing get?
Look here. So let me also make sure I criticize both sides. Okay. So I'm going to criticize the people that do the paragliding and it's sick. Lindsey Graham is an irresponsible lawmaker for what he's saying. Bombing Iranian oil depots, this thing could get wildly out of control very, very quickly. The last thing America needs is a kinetic war against Iran, an 87 million person country that has a pretty fierce fighting spirit, a country that's 5 times the size of Iraq. 5 times the size of Iraq. We're going to go start bombing oil depots? Yeah, that could get Russia further involved, China involved. Yeah, look, the quote-unquote Armageddon situation is that for Israel, the Armageddon situation is that they overreact so much that they lose their Arab neutrality. Right now, they have neutrality with Egypt. If they overreact, they could lose that. They have warm conversations. I won't say a peace deal yet with Saudi Arabia. They could lose that. Jordan plays ball because America demands they play ball. They could lose that. Syria, Bashar al-Assad, he acts as if it doesn't exist, but that could change in a moment's notice, right? Lebanon via Hezbollah is already there. They could be all of a sudden dealing with a 15-country invasion of Israel.
Can they handle that?
They have in the past. I mean, the Six-Day War, the Yom Kippur War. The Yom Kippur War, for example, they were invaded from every direction. At the Balfour Declaration, when they became a country in 1948, every Arab country declared war on them, and they almost lost the country. And to their credit, they held it off and they earned the right to be Israel. But I don't know what that looks like. No one does. And you're talking about countries that have some form of nuclear weaponry as well. Saudi Arabia doesn't have a total nuclear developed bomb, but they have some sophistication, far more than Iran. But yeah, look, I mean, I'm not an alarmist, but if we take the path of Nikki Haley and Lindsey Graham, like we're dramatically increasing the chances of a world war.
Can we stay right there on the Iran situation? Obviously, this is very close to home.
Lunatic wants World War III.
It's a PBD.
He's a lunatic.
That picture, I think, says 1,000 words. The tape on the windows, you're used to this. When you've seen bombings like this, when you've seen death like this, you wish this upon nobody. But the biggest question is, like, we're so focused on what's going on in Russia, Ukraine, granted. Obviously, the big picture, I think we can all agree, is what's going on with China, right? That's the big picture here. But, in this region, the tip of the spear with all these issues is Iran. So as much as Lindsey Graham sounds
like a lunatic,
like a wild man, warmongering, wild man, John Bolton-esque type person.
They're the same person.
He is at least bringing up the fact that Iran needs to be dealt with. At the heels of all this, what's going on, and you bring up like what,
So that's important.
The next 5 moves of Israel is they're at the final innings of this deal with Saudi Arabia. Obviously, Saudi Arabia and Iran are enemies, Shia, Sunni.
It's irreconcilable.
Right. So what must be done with Iran at this point?
Well,
because to be clear, they're the ones that fund Hamas. They're the ones that fund Hezbollah. They're the greatest exporter of terrorism around the world.
True. They're chanting death to America.
Death to America after we get them $6 billion.
Yeah.
What do we do there?
The first thing is we must remember that we, the American government, are the reason why Iran is radical. We did this. They had a democratically elected leader that we did not like. I believe his name was Mossadegh.
Mossad.
Yeah, right?
Mossadegh.
Yeah, Mossadegh, thank you. And we didn't like him because he wanted to nationalize the oil. Specifically, the Brits didn't like it.
50s. This is
what year was this, PBD? Okay, gotcha. This is before the show.
Yes, he was very popular.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And look right there. Even in Wikipedia, 1953 Iranian coup d'etat aided by intelligence agencies of the UK and United States.
Weird.
Got it.
Okay? So then we put the Shah back in, if my memory serves me correctly, who was sick and unpopular, meaning he was actually suffering. Physically sick.
Yeah.
And we paved the way for the most radical elements of Islam from a country that, Patrick, you know it better than I do. The Persian people are the most entrepreneurial. They're some of the smartest people that have really been living under radical Islamic captivity for many decades. Why am I bringing this up? Sometimes your intervention can make things far, far worse. Sometimes intervention is moral and necessary. Our intervention in World War II in Europe was moral and necessary. So what to do? Well, I think Joe Biden should definitely not give them $6 billion. I think that's a good start. I think that sanctions is probably appropriate. But I also think that we have to be really clear that Iran is an enemy of the United States, but it pales in comparison to the immediate and the pernicious and the existential threat that the Chinese Communist Party poses to America. And I don't want to see us get into the Lindsey Graham dream world that Iran is somehow murdering Americans. They are financing terror. They're chanting death to America. But China right now is actively creating fentanyl that comes into our country that kills over 100,000 people. Not everyone for fentanyl, but drug overdoses.
Majority, yeah.
Yes, over a majority of the 100,000 is fentanyl. What I'm getting at is I, as a millennial turning 30, know nothing but Middle Eastern no-win war quagmires, right?
Yep.
And I am cynical. And I think it's my moral responsibility and my public role as a commentator to slow down the chatter anytime we're talking about accelerating us closer to another conflict in the Middle East. Because we did it in Iraq. I think it was a mistake. We spent trillions of dollars and we lost precious American lives, led to ISIS. And you want the thought crime? Honestly, Saddam Hussein kept a lot of the terrorists in check.
Yep.
They were scared of him.
He was a bad guy, but he wasn't the worst guy. And I think the same thing in Afghanistan. So what do? I think first we have to calm down the neoconservatives that are bloodthirsty and want war more than they want what's best for America.
Yeah, you know what is this is actually. I think it's going to be a filter. And by the way, I don't know if this video is recent or we shared it the other day, or it's right after they killed Qasem Soleimani. I don't know exactly the date of this video. So just kind of verify when this video was. What does it say right there? This video was from 3 years ago. Okay, yeah, this is when we killed Qasem Soleimani.
But the attitude hasn't changed.
No,
right?
not at all.
It's not like their opinions have changed dramatically.
You know,
Pat,
on the Shah thing you talk about with Mossadegh. Mossadegh was a guy that came in who was the modern day Bernie Sanders.
Who wanted to nationalize everything.
He wanted to nationalize everything. He wanted to, nationalize everything, and then the Shah comes in. The Shah
comes back,
modernizes the whole thing. Education improves. Women finally have no longer, age of marriage for girls are no longer 8 years old or 13 years old. He raised it to, I think, whatever it was, 15 years old. And then women can actually go become lawyers and go to school. Education for women changed. Then what happened in the Middle East when Iran was ran by him, Reza Pahlavi, the Shah, is conflict in the Middle East was less, okay? Because now it was Iran who had a good relationship with U.S. for the most part, except when there was Democratic presidents, there was issues. But for the most part, they had a good relation with U.S. And he had his 25-year contract. He wrote if you can go to 1954 Iran oil deal, it was in 1954. The deal was coming up till 1979. That's what it is.
Or something?
So it's called the Consortium Agreement of 1954. This was a deal they did.
Yeah, British Petroleum.
Yeah,
right.
This was a deal they did. That was a 25-year deal. This is what's so interesting about it. Watch this. 1950 or so, provided Western oil companies with 50% ownership of Iranian oil production after its ratification in 1954, expiring what year? 1979. So the PM, I think the leaders of UK, US, I want to say France and one other country met in South or Central America to talk about how to prevent this 25-year contract from coming up, because the Shah was going to go away from the 50% deal.
That's right.
And he was going to rule the world. He was going to become so powerful. 1979 is when it expires. Guess when the Shah expired? Right, 1979. Maybe a little bit of a strange timing on what they did with this year. And then comes Khomeini, comes Hezbollah, comes the 3,000 political prisoners, because Jimmy Carter's talking about human rights. They're freed. A lot of them ended up becoming the ISIS, the Hezbollahs, the Two-Day Party, the communists who ended up doing 9/11. So, and Carter was pushing this with them. The similar thing that he did with Cuba as well. It was like, hey, you need to free. It's not fair for what you're doing with your people, human rights. He says, no problem. Here's 125,000 people I'm releasing from Cuba to U.S. And who did he release? Political.
All those guys.
I'm just a political refugee. I'm a political prisoner, right? Is what I am.
Scarface.
And boom, unemployment in Miami goes up to 50%. But I understand what you're saying with the Iran situation and what's going to happen there. Mm-hmm. So let me bring you back to a different thing. If you got one last thought about this, I want to transition.
I don't want to just. The Iran thing is so fascinating to me because I think they are the tip of the spear of what's going on in the Middle East. And then who are they funded by? China. What was the amount of money that they gave them? $400 billion?
$450 million.
So here's my question to you.
$400 billion, 25 years.
Okay. Sure. Just to kind of emphasize this. If you're a consultant or the national security advisor to whether it's Donald Trump or Joe Biden or whoever it is, you, PBD, how do you deal with Iran? Do you pull out of the nuclear deal entirely like Trump did? Do you get back into the nuclear deal? Do you give them any money whatsoever, the $6 billion for the hostages? How do you deal with Iran?
What do you do?
Yeah, I think Trump had it right, which, remember, there was clamoring for Trump to go to war against Iran and strike, and he resisted that. At the same time, he was tough and very firm, where he canceled the Iran deal, went after Soleimani, But you have to have your priorities right. What is best for America? Right? War with Iran is not what is best for America. There's some other facts about Iran that are important, though. I think the Iran situation solves itself over a period of time. I believe 50% of their population is under the age of 35. We can fact check it. They have one of the youngest populations on the planet, and we could fact check it. It might not be that extreme. But you have a very, very radical government. The people of Iran are incredibly talented. They're entrepreneurial. They're industrious, and I'm actually more bullish on the future of Iran if you can liberate them from the captivity that they're under.
You do that, is my point.
Well,
we saw what happened last year with the girls.
That's what's one of the youngest
60%.
populations.
We saw what happened when a girl took off her job. She was killed, beaten. The women have no rights there.
The answer is it shouldn't be a top priority of the American government because we have so many problems here to execute a CIA coup d'etat in another country. You have to put sanctions on. You have to put them in check. You have to try to, in my personal opinion, allow Israel to seek justice. At the same time, you cannot allow this to turn into a regional, broader war. You know why? Because the adult America is going to have to come clean it up. That's why. If we just kind of say, oh, it doesn't, this thing turns into a regional conflict, we're going to have more troops on the ground, and we're going to have to go clean up this mess, as Trump calls it, in the region of sand and death, while our own country is disintegrating and collapsing. But look, there's a lot of other technical things you could do to Iran, right? You can prevent them access to European markets, which Joe Biden hasn't done, right? They go and shop in Paris and London all the time. You cut that crap off, right? Just like lifestyle stuff that you could easily do. You cut off student visas, right, from certain Iranian expats. You can put extra sanctions on. There's a lot of other tools you can do. And the number one thing you can do is you drill, baby, drill here domestically, and you weaken Iran's energy hegemony. Basically, if you increase the oil supply, which Donald Trump had us energy independent and exporting more oil than we were importing, you significantly weaken Iran. And you weaken Russia, too, if you care about that, right? The more you explore for oil in the American homeland, the weaker these governments that are reliant on the petrodollar become.